We're going to be working around fuel here, so we want to take some basic safety precautions. Always work in a well-ventilated area away from any source of ignition, which includes hot water heaters or incandescent shop lights. As always, whenever you're working on your vehicle, you should have safety glasses on, but now's a good time to invest in some chemically resistant gloves. Most importantly, have a properly rated and fully charged fire extinguisher handy and know how to use it. Also, you're going to be opening holes that go directly into the engine. In this case, before you begin, get a can of compressed air and blow all the dust and debris away from the injector ports. The fuel rail and injectors, red arrows, sit on top of the engine between the head and the intake manifold. There is a fuel supply line, green arrow, going to the fuel damper on the front rail, and a fuel return line, yellow arrow, coming out of the fuel pressure regulator on the rear of the rail. To help decrease the pressure in the fuel rail, you'll want to remove the fuel pump relay and turn the engine over a couple of times until it runs out of fuel. Begin by locating the relay panel. In the earlier cars, it will be up under the dash. For later cars, it will be in the rear left side of the engine bay by the base of the windshield. Remove the cover, red arrow. Check with your manual. Locate the fuel pump relay and remove it, red arrow. Crank the ignition over a few times until the car runs out of fuel. Fuel will still escape while performing this job, but this will help relieve some of the pressure. The pressure regulator bolts to the rear of the fuel rail where the fuel enters the regulator, red arrow, hidden by bracket. There is also a vacuum line, yellow arrow, and a fuel return line attached to it, green arrow. There is no need to remove the regulator from the rail as it will come off with the rail, but the lines must be separated. Pull the vacuum line from the regulator, red arrow. Use a flathead screwdriver and remove the clamp from the return fuel line and slip the line off the regulator, red arrow. Move to the front of the fuel rail. The pressure dampener mounts to the front of the fuel rail. On one end is the fuel supply line, red arrow, a vacuum line, yellow arrow, and a line out to the fuel rail, green arrow. The line out to the fuel rail actually has a fitting on the bottom of the dampener. There is no need to remove these, as they will stay on the rail when you remove it. Remove the vacuum line by pulling it off, red arrow. These lines get old and brittle, so use care when you remove it. Replace the vacuum line if necessary. Support the 24mm nut on the dampener, red arrow, and use a 19mm wrench to loosen the fuel supply line, yellow arrow. Fuel will escape, so be prepared to catch it and dispose of it properly. You can leave the 24mm nut holding the dampener to the bracket. Move the supply and return line out of the way and cut any clips or zip ties holding the injector wiring harness to the fuel rail, red arrows. Disconnect any plug wires or anything else someone might have attached to the fuel rail. Use a small flathead screwdriver or pick and release the wire clips on the wiring harness, red arrow. Pull the connections off of the injectors, yellow arrow. Remove the 4 10mm bolts holding the fuel rail to the head, indicated by the red arrows. Pull the fuel rail and injector straight up and out of the intake manifold. The injector ports are open right into the engine, so make sure to put some paper towel or rags in them, red arrows. You do not want anything falling in there, as it may mean removing the head to get it out. Be smart and plug them up fast. The injectors and rail will come out as one piece. Take it to your bench or workspace. Be prepared because some fuel will still leak out when removing the injectors. The injectors are held to the rail by a small clip, red arrow. It sits in a groove in the injector port on the rail. You can slip the clip off with a screwdriver or sometimes just your fingers. The injector will pull out from the rail with the clip removed. There are 2 O-rings on each injector where they seat in the rail or the manifold, red arrows. These O-rings must be replaced every time you remove the injectors. When installing the injectors, it is a good idea to put a little white lithium grease on each O-ring to help slip them into place. Installation is the reverse of removal, and expect the vehicle to run rough for a couple of seconds as the air is cleared from the system the first time you start it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.